tonight's thought. It's not every day you get hailed as a hero at the Dunkin Donuts, and you get a free donut. Yeah, this happened to me yesterday. It was quite amazing. It's one of those rare moments that I think will stick out in my life, at least for a few weeks. I don't like to have my life and my memories ruled by negative feelings, unless they're followed by positive ones. And this was one. This is one of those incidents I think you could count on. Yeah, this woman. Well, I was standing in line at Dunkin Donuts yesterday, and I was running a little bit late for work, and I went in there just to get a coffee because the drive-thru was backed up like you wouldn't believe, and it's this great secret. I don't think it's really a secret. I think everybody knows it, that if you just park in an empty parking lot next to a busy drive-thru, you could just walk right in and be in and out before the line even moves in the drive-thru. And I'm thinking, it's a Friday, and I haven't had any coffee. I woke up that morning, and there were no more Keurig pods left. And I'm like, I know this. I know if I just go on into the cafe, that I'll be able to get in and out, no problem. And I go in, and they immediately serve me. And they give me the coffee before I can even get my order out. And I'm surprised about this. Dunkin Donuts is usually pretty slow no matter what happens. But this time they were fast. And I ordered a sandwich because I was feeling a little cocky. I'm like, oh, you got my coffee? Okay, let's see if you can get this. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, sandwich, fine. So it takes a couple of minutes because they got to throw it in the oven or whatever, or the microwave. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this voice out of the corner of my eye. I need to speak to your manager. I'm like, oh no, this is like a bad piece of performance art. Clearly, people know in this day and age that there's like this entitlement culture. And the catchphrase of it is, let me speak to your manager. And I was like, am I in the middle of like a flash mob? Is somebody doing public improvisation? I don't know. And I look up, and sure enough, there's this woman looking very angry, demanding that this woman in an incredibly understaffed Dunkin Donuts goes and gets the manager. This is the thing that's happening now in America. It's like everywhere you go, everything is understaffed, especially fast food restaurants. Nobody wants to work in them anymore. And of course, with the unemployment relief last year, people are still staying home. They're not getting out there and restoring the workforce. So every place is understaffed, and I wonder if this woman knows this, because before long, she's got somebody else, I guess the shift supervisor, coming up to tell her that the manager will not be there until 10 o'clock. And of course, this infuriates the woman. And she says, well, I need to speak to them right now, and I'm not leaving until I do. And they said, well, you can wait. It'll be a couple of hours. It was about 7:30 in the morning. And they said, may I assist you with something, ma'am? And she says, well, I come in the drive-thru and I order some hash browns, and they don't give me hash browns. They give me everything else I got but hash browns. And I just want to know why you do this to your customers. And they just kind of are now, by this point, everybody in the Dunkin Donuts is now staring at this woman. And I could hardly believe this. The only way that I could believe it is I'm sitting there drinking my coffee and watching this whole situation unfold, very quickly realizing that it is real, is because I did work in the service industry for quite some time. I was the guy behind the counter who was asked for the manager. I would have to, people would just have these insane expectations. And very often it wasn't even really something that you did. It wasn't something that the store did. It's something else in this person's life that is going wrong. Very, very wrong. And you were just the poor receiver of it. So I'm realizing this is happening, and I'm kind of getting up and walking over to the counter, just like because I'm uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in situations like that because you feel for the people behind the counter, and you just have to do something physical in the moment to readjust yourself. And so I get up and I go over to the counter, and again, the woman behind the counter, the shift supervisor is like, "I'm sorry, ma'am, the manager's not in," and she's like, they say, "Can we give you some more hash browns?" And she's like, "I don't want any more hash browns. I want an apology." And they say to the woman, "Well, again, we are sorry for this. Can we give you your money back?" And she's like, "I don't want any money. I don't need $3. I need an apology." And I forgot before she said, like, I'm not hungry anymore. I don't want the hash browns. I just want an apology. And so it's just this insane thing where they're like, "Well, we are sorry." And they're like, "I want the manager to apologize." And they say, "Well, the manager will be here at 10 o'clock. So this goes on in circles. And meanwhile, more and more people are backing up in the drive-thru. You can hear horns honking. There are people behind me. More and more people are walking in. The bell is dinging over the door. And it's just getting to this fever pitch of nerves. And you could tell, like, these poor people behind the counter just doing everything they can to get back to work, but she won't let them. And I check my watch, and I am indeed running late, and I should not have come in here because I knew something like this. God does not want me to be happy in Dunkin Donuts. I'm fairly concerned about that. Every time I go into Dunkin', something happens. They forget my order. The microwave breaks. I don't know. Somebody comes in and orders 18 coffees and they have to brew new coffee, so I have to wait. This time everything was going right, and then this woman comes in and ruins everything. And it makes me irritated a little bit. It kind of pisses me off. And I start to open my mouth, and I don't even think about the consequences, but I'm just kind of a little irritated. And I told this woman, I chime in. I never do this before, but I am running late. It's a bit of a stressful day. It's been a stressful month, and everything just comes out in this one moment. I say to this woman, "Ma'am, I think it was an accident. You're holding everybody up. They apologized. Let's move on." And so the woman looked at me and she started laughing. And I think initially she was kind of trying to register it. There was like this blankness there, this silence. And she started laughing with me because I had a little bit of a smile on my face while this was happening, because I was trying to bring some levity to the situation, just trying to remind her of how ridiculous it is that she's asking for an apology over some hash browns. And even when she's not hungry anymore. But no, I realize that she thinks that I'm on her side. She thinks that, like, there's suddenly going to be like an army of Dunkin Donuts customers teaming up against these like 3 people behind the counter. And then she quickly realizes, no, that's not happening. He's actually against me. He's actually on the side of these people behind the counter. And it's the weirdest thing, because normally when something like this happens, when I'm confrontational, I get very tense. I'm not a confrontational person at all. So I was getting tense. I usually get tense, and I get choked up, and I have a hard time saying my arguments and making complete sentences. And this is just a problem that I've had ever since I was bullied in elementary school for my last name. But this time it's weird. It's like, because the moment is so inconsequential to me. And I think it's because I've got so many other things in my mind about getting to work and, And the woman does something that nobody has ever done before in the history of my confrontations. She walks away without saying a single thing. It's like in that moment, I've said everything. And it just clicks on this woman, I think, that, oh my God, I'm making an ass of myself. And she gets up and walks away. And there it is. And the manager, or the assistant shift supervisor, whoever it was, I kind of secretly believe that she was the manager, comes over and she's like, have a donut on me. So I was a hero in the Dunkin Donuts. It's nice. Well, from Birmingham, Alabama, this is your Midnight Citizen Show. I'm Mike Booty. Thank you so much for joining me. We are live tonight here in the studio. It's a very rainy night outside. I've got the window up. Of course, the rain, as soon as I needed it to start raining so that I could have this nice little ambience, this background, stopped. Of course, not everything can always go right, but hopefully everything else will. Here on a Saturday night, welcome into the show. So yes. And, you know, the interesting thing about what happened in that Dunkin Donuts cafe yesterday on Friday morning was the fact that this is part of a phenomenon that has been going on in recent years, and I've been hearing my students talk about it a lot. I am a high school English teacher, and very often they will throw terms at me from the internet, which I become increasingly distanced from as I grow older. You know, the whole thing now is memes and people talking about memes and referencing memes, and I don't necessarily get onto that because it kind of creates this whole lexicon that I'm just not clear about, and it becomes very difficult and kind of stressful to keep up with all this stuff. And a lot of these kids lately have been talking about this Karen phenomenon, you know, Karen, right? And sometimes Kens, if it's a man. But the idea of like a Karen is someone, generally a white woman with short cut hair, which sounds very specific, who generally flaunts her privilege and her entitlement in front of low-wage employees, generally asking, you know, I need to speak to the manager and all this. And this is something that my students talk about quite a bit. And even when I was teaching a writing summer camp this week, I asked my students to create a story. And one of the students actually did create a story of a character called Karen, who becomes very disgruntled in a pizza restaurant, a pizzeria, and asks for the manager. And sure enough, this is not the first time this has happened. At a writing camp that I taught last week, another student also created a story with a character named Karen who gets upset at the manager of a grocery store and has to speak to the manager. And, you know, this is something that kids are talking about more and more. And it's very fascinating because it's almost like this perceptive ability they have to mock and satirize a adults. And, this is not the first time, of course, this has happened. I think kids have always made fun of adults. It's like their way of getting power over people who are older than they are. It's also like the whole way that they will refer to anybody older than 18 or 19 as boomers, because it's like you try to explain something to them and they're like, okay, boomer. And, that happens to me all the time as a teacher. But this Karen thing I've always thought is a little bit rude and incredibly generalizing, because it essentially puts this negative stereotype on people, especially women, who sometimes might have a good reason for wanting to speak to the manager. And again, working in retail and in food service, I know that sometimes, you have to take these people seriously. And I don't want to be raising an entire generation of kids who grow up thinking that if they're working in a low-wage service industry, that they're automatically going to mock a customer that they have who wants to speak to the manager. That's a good way to lose a job. And so I always try to remind my students when they start talking about Karen and throwing that word around liberally that let's just consider the facts here. But, in this case, it's interesting. And I don't know if it's like the law of attraction, because I've been talking about Karens so much with my kids lately, that this incident happened in Dunkin Donuts yesterday with this woman who was very clearly who was very clearly a Karen, But I was curious about this, because as much as I've talked about this name and this, I don't know if you want to call it a meme, but this term, this catch-all term called Karen with my students, I've never actually gotten to the heart of it. I've never done research on it to find out where it comes from. And when I got to work that day, I sat down for a few minutes and had my coffee and ate my sandwich that they finally got to me. I forgot to say that woman, the whole incident made the people behind the counter at Dunkin Donuts completely forget my sandwich. So I waited there for 10 minutes before they finally realized that I had ordered something else, that I wasn't just there to save the day from the Karen. But I did sit down and I did my research on this, and I found out that the term essentially goes back to the 2016 Donald Trump election. That's when it started popping up more and more, and it started popping up to essentially describe Trumpettes, which is another term referring to, white women who support Donald Trump. And, we just have these things that we love to call people in society now. And anytime you have an opinion about anything, you're immediately labeled, which is something that supremely bugs me. But that's beside the point. The term Karen came from Trumpettes, essentially. And along with a bunch of incidents also, but primarily it grew also out of the Black Lives Matter movement as a way for black people to essentially mock and satirize entitled, white privileged women who will berate and belittle African-American service workers. And that's exactly what was happening at the Dunkin Donuts the other day. So... and it is very funny also because Thursday night, the night before the Dunkin Donuts incident, a memory popped up on my Facebook feed. This was a story that I shared with my wife 4 years ago. And the term Karen is never used in this story, but it nevertheless is very much a description, a perfect Karen description. The headline, this happened, I believe, in Tennessee. The headline says, "Woman drop kicks Kroger cake saying it was ruined." I'm not going to read the whole article, but the the meat of it essentially is that this woman goes in to pick up a Batman v Superman birthday cake for her 7-year-old son, and it's not exactly to her specifications. And so she comes behind the counter and she starts trying to decorate it herself, and they say that per health code restrictions, you cannot be back here. And so she gets really mad. She picks up the birthday cake and apparently drops it and kicks it across the bakery. And then she is not satisfied there, so she goes up and repeatedly steps on the dismantled cake, and then storms out and kicks over a wet floor sign on her way out. She was later arrested for it. And interestingly, it says that she was charged with disorderly conduct, but it was not the first time that she was arrested. No, this had happened before. And no, it's not what you think. It was not one day to the day after she was arrested the first time. It's not like she got mad at another birthday cake the year before. I don't know what it was for. It doesn't say, but, But again, this is the thing. And even though clearly the woman in Dunkin was a little bit unstable to get mad over Dunkin, sometimes human beings make mistakes. And she just obviously probably knew that. I mean, people are rational and they understand. But again, sometimes people let little incidents like that stand in for much bigger issues in their lives. And I think that this is what's going on with this Kroger cake woman as well. The Kroger cake Karen. That's a good title for tonight's show, but I've already named tonight's show. It's called The Karen Situation, which is like a Pulp Fiction reference. I don't know. Kroger cake Karen. Clearly she had been charged with disorderly conduct before, so the woman obviously was suffering from mental health issues. So we don't always want to assume that people like this just don't have the capacity for logic like the rest of us do. Sometimes they just have bad days, and they just need to come in and take it out on them. So, and I think I realized that when I did open my mouth, even though I didn't even realize that I had until I started hearing myself talk. I think it just, what I was saying in my head just came out loud, but I was still very nice to the woman. I said, I think it was an accident. You're holding people up. Can we please move on? So I used the word please. I did not say thank you. But nevertheless, that is the Karen situation. There it is. So, what else? But I hope you are doing very, very well tonight, wherever you are. Saturday night, June 19th, 2021. Yeah, I've had a very stressful month. I had that theater dream again. You know the theater dream, right? The theater dream is the one where you are essentially about to go on stage, right? And you forget all of your lines. And you got to go on and perform. And you have absolutely no idea what you're going to say. As soon as you get out there, you're going to disappoint a ton of people who paid for a ticket to come see your show. And I have that dream from time to time. And I always thought it was just me, but one night I was having dinner with my wife, and I told my wife the dream. And my wife is an actress, and she said, "Oh yeah, every actor has that dream." And I said, "Well, I'm not an actor." And she says, "Everybody's an actor." which is profound. But, generally having that dream around the time I've got to do a lot of stuff. People are expecting things from me. I've got a lot of responsibility. And that's been going on lately. I generally have that dream right before the new school year starts. Of course, we just got out for summer, so why am I having this dream? Essentially, the reason I'm having this dream is because I am going through some life changes right now. Well, some potential life changes. I don't really think anything's honestly going to change. I just am at that point where I am seriously, for the first time in many years, reassessing certain things. And I have been interviewing for new jobs lately. And by the way, this is not... I know that this is a podcast for public consumption. I have made the mistake before about talking about work on my podcast. I've learned my lesson, okay? That time that I talked about work on my podcast resulted in the only time in the history of the 11-year run of this show, The Midnight Citizen, that I've had to take down an episode. It was episode 94 from August of 2014, right? But I have let my boss know that I'm interviewing for other jobs, just for the time being. I said, I would still like to work at this job, but my wife and I would simply like a change, and we would like to consider moving to another city, and just letting you know. And I gave her, a time when I would let her know my final decision, and it's Monday. So I've got to let my boss know on Monday whether or not I'm going to continue to teach at my school next year. And I have been offered a couple of jobs. I've turned them both down because they just did not feel right. I was offered a job teaching in Phoenix, and I was offered a job teaching in Nashville, Tennessee. And I turned the job down in Phoenix because simply it's Phoenix. That's quite a move from Birmingham, Alabama. I think that's essentially moving to the same place you are in the Southeast, only it's out west. But it seemed like a great school. I met the principal. I interviewed with her a couple of times. I interviewed with the staff. I mean, it was just a week-long process. And at the end of it, when they finally gave me an answer and they offered me the job, I was just like, this is amazing, but it's one of those things that just sounds amazing. Like, oh my God, just picking up a Birmingham boy and moving to Phoenix. And then it's the reality, and you kind of just get tensed up at the idea of spending the rest of the summer moving to Phoenix and working with middle schoolers, which I worked with high schoolers. I mean, one change at a time, come on. So, and the job in Nashville, I actually did consider quite heavily. I drove up last weekend to Nashville, Tennessee. Only 2.5 hours away, still close to my family and my friend and my friends and my roots, right? And I had a very nice stay there in Nashville. I drove up Friday night, and I stayed at a campground up there. I rented a cabin for the night. And sat out on the porch. As a matter of fact, that was the show art from last week's episode of The Midnight Citizen. It's just me sitting on the cabin, looking out at other cabins. It's very nice. And woke up the next day, and I drove, and I looked at the school. And I looked at this other school where I had an interview this week. Went around, looked at some neighborhoods, looked at some houses. I did an internet search for the best breakfast place in all of Nashville, and I went there. I wanted to see something that the best of Nashville had to offer. and it was pretty good. I mean, I'm still I'm still tasting that. I got this scramble of black beans and eggs and avocado. I mean, I could probably make it at my house, but and I got a Bloody Mary. It's delicious. And, you know, I just drove around Nashville for a few hours, just kind of getting absorbed in the idea of living in a place other than Birmingham, Alabama, which I've been here practically my whole life. And it was interesting because I never really fully considered moving to another city to the point where I'm actually driving around it looking at houses. It was a very surreal feeling in your late 30s to be thinking about a serious move like that. And but I was driving around the city, and you know, this is like a city that has history that they make films about. Not that Birmingham doesn't. We were home to the civil rights movement, but like real, like cultural, like you're right there in the middle of country music central. I stayed right by the Grand Ole Opry. And, you know, you're driving around, you're seeing like signs for the Johnny Cash Museum everywhere. And you're like, I'm driving down the streets that Johnny Cash drove down, you know. I could be living in the same city as like I could shop at the same Kroger as Garth and Trisha, you know, and Nicole and Keith. Don't Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have a house there? I don't know. You know, just the idea of like living someplace like that was really intoxicating, this idea. But again, ultimately, you know, I turned down that job. I got back that day on Saturday, and I did a show that night, and I was kind of on pins and needles all day Sunday because I was just trying to make this decision, you know, and should I stay or should I go? And ultimately, I called up the principal on Monday, and I said, I just like, right now, it just doesn't, I'm sorry, I'd like to continue teaching high school because it was for a middle school position, and I just didn't know if I could do it. Once again, very nice principal. I've gotten to meet some amazing people in the education system throughout this entire process. Charter schools mainly is where I'm looking. Because with the charter school, you know, you're still in like the public arena. You're still kind of more or less in the private arena, I meant to say. Charter schools are like a mix between public schools and private schools. You know, they get public money, but at the same time, they also rely about 40% of their funding comes from private fundraising and grants and donations and things like that. So you still get a little bit of private autonomy, which is nice, and I like that idea. So I teach at a fully private school right now. But I did interview for this one last job on Wednesday. I think it went very well. It is for teaching high school in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm waiting to hear back from it. But honestly, at this point, you know, I've got to let my boss know on Monday what's going on. And the idea of picking up and moving is incredibly exciting. But at the same time, spending the rest of the summer just concentrated on that one thing, and then having to start a new job is absolutely terrifying. It's designed to be terrifying. You don't want to just like pick up and make a dramatic decision like that and not have to face any blowback in your self-doubt. I don't know. So but I don't know, you know, every year or so, it generally happens around this time, around summer, when I'm out of school and I get some time for self-reflection. I just have this feeling of like, you know, when I was a kid, I was trapped in a house. Everything I did, I had to ask somebody to do. And this feeling never goes away as an adult that like, you know, you could do whatever you want to. I mean, if it comes down to the fact of like, you know I've already had one cookie, but I'm going to have another cookie. You know, I'm an adult. There's nobody to tell me what to do. And this idea that like, I'm not tied down to anything. I can pick up and go. I can be free. I can do other things. I don't have to go and work the same job every single year. But at the same time, I also believe in counting my blessings and just thinking about what I have. I do have a great job, and I do like the people I work with, and I do like my students. And so you got to ask, you're not really tied down if you enjoy what you do, I guess. At the same time, I am incredibly stressed all the time. I actually did a side-by-side comparison of myself. Of a picture I took of myself this time last year. I have a lot more gray in my hair. But I was watching that film, The Big Lebowski. That film about the dude. And he just has this lifestyle where all he does is just like hang out in his apartment all day, and he drinks White Russians and takes baths and goes out, bowls with his friends at night, and then drives around all day. Occasionally gets into adventures. I always liked that movie because it depicted this like slacker lifestyle, which I would just fantasize about living. Waking up every day, not exactly knowing where where the day is gonna take you. That's such a great idea. I love that idea. But I think it would be fun for like a week, and then you just get like, ugh, god damn. I don't know. It is in times like this, though, where I do wish I were a Christian still. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, and like any time you would make a major life decision, and I still see it today around people I work with or I've worked with who are Christians. If they have to quit or they have to leave or retire, oh my gosh, flash flood warning, look at that. I just got an alert on my phone, flash flood warning. No, it doesn't look flooded outside my house to me. So anytime a Christian leaves a job, they don't have these excuses like the rest of us do. Oh, I just want to go try something else in my life, or I feel like I just need to step back or take a break. We all sound like we're hemming and hawing and hedging and bobbing and weaving and just making up excuses. But if you're a Christian, you can just say, God has a different plan for me. God is pointing me in another direction. And I've heard this over and over in my life, and everybody always says, no matter how much work they're going to inherit for that person who's leaving, because God's pointing them in another direction. I've always heard people be like, oh yeah, okay, I understand. All right. Well, God be with you. Yet, I'm not an atheist. I don't know. So, we have been, my wife and I have been teaching summer camp this week, though. And as I said on last week's show, my wife is actually teaching this theater summer camp in the old well, it's not really old. It still exists, this Brookwood Mall that was a major mall in the 1980s and 1990s, and really one of my favorite malls to go to ever. It was the place I first had Sbarro Pizza, where I first played the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And but in recent years, obviously, it's lost almost all of its occupancy. So now all the storefronts are more or less just empty. But this theater that here in Birmingham that my wife is teaching for this summer, they've taken a lot of their old storefronts and they've turned them into classrooms for the kids. So the kids come in now, and these kids are 12, 13, 14 years old, and my wife was saying that some of her kids were saying, like, that they had never even been in a mall before, and one girl was, like, totally clueless as to what this thing was. And she was like, so you would just come and get lunch at the Chick-fil-A and just sit here? I mean, around all of this emptiness? And my wife is like, no, there used to be stores here. And she's like, wait, this used to be a store? My wife is like, yeah, I think it used to be a Bath and Body Works. She's like, what's Bath and Body Works? So yeah, it was incredibly sad to go and see this mall, because this is probably the last iteration that this mall will go through, the last gasp, the death rattle. Right? This place that I used to come to on Saturdays, and I used to live that cliched American existence of just being a mall rat. You know, eating in the mall, walking around the mall, working in the mall. Because I did work in that mall. I worked there in Christmas of 2007, and I worked a whole bunch of other jobs throughout the late 90s and early 2000s in the Galleria Mall. You know, mall culture was the thing. It's where you went to do everything, and now it's just like all shadow of its former self. Kids don't even know what it is anymore. You know, some of my students wear around old Blockbuster staff T-shirts that they got at the thrift store. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons that I've become so stressed lately. It's just driving around, seeing things that I used to do all closed down. The urban decay. You know, I'm stressed out because every conceivable good memory that I had of my childhood is being mowed over, you know. Video stores are liquor stores, beauty colleges, and malls are schools and Amazon distribution centers. It's depressing. But we still got the crystal clear, pure spirit of night radio going on here on the Midnight Citizen Show. I'm going to step away for just a minute and play you some music. I will be back right after this.
It's me, old Galway, come and shine. Red, red wine, so mellow and fine. Come home at night with a swing in the head. Reach for the pillow, Mr. Hold on bed. Drum, 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 drum. Gin is a drink so mellow and slow. Get a little taste and you want some more. Start out walking, you just can't go. Reach for the knob, Mr. Hold on door. Drum, 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 drum. Spend on the bar, dust till dawn, then that's where you are. Out at a party, getting groovy and tight. Come home and forget to kiss your baby goodnight. Drunk, 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 drunk. I keeps on drinking, takes all my gold. Every morning my head is sore. Whiskey, gin, wine's a goddamn fine. I'm gonna try you just one more time. Drunk, 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 drunk.
left-handed means generally smart. 'Cause when they're babies they work extra hard. 'Cause the world isn't built for them, right down to opening doors. So things that come the most with natural ease become a problem in the brains of the weird. And the extra hard work is a boon in their formative years. I think my brain was glued in back to front. I like so many things that most people don't. I have always been what the kids at school call weird. But you know that cavemen started roaming in mobs. Maybe the loners are just highly involved, smacked up like lance, breaking away from the peloton. Well, people are cruel sometimes. You gotta learn how not to mind, or otherwise you'll change yourself to fit within their lines. They got brick walls for eyes. When they shout weirdo, it can feel like a curse. But I can think of at least one thing that's worse. Let your weird light shine so the others can find you. And they say that names are unlike sticks and stones, but you are more than just the sum of your bones. And I hope you don't break from the weight of them calling. Things evolve, problem solved by mutation, genes gone wrong. We came from the sea through happy accidents. Oh, through vocal cords that learn to speak by mutation. Some shall freak. The irony is lost on some. The ordinary overrun. But the beauty of the world lies in the freak. They say left-handed means generally smart. 'Cause when they're babies they work extra hard. Because the world isn't built for them.
And showtime, folks. Welcome back. You're here. It's Mike Booty. This is the Midnight Citizen Show in Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you so much for sticking through that. Music. Wonderful music. We had Drunk by Simon Mathewson. That last one you heard was Les Hayden, a song called Sinister from the album Telepathy. And both of those songs are available on the freemusicarchive.org from station WFMU in New Jersey. I want to thank them so much for allowing poor people like me to share in their licensing of wonderful music. So we are live right now, and this is the live stream. And if you are watching live, thank you so much for joining me. I am in the chat, so if anyone has anything to say, anything nice to say, that'd be nice. Anything mean to say, try and wait until after the show's over. I have a weird habit of being thrown off by negative comments. So, but this show, the live stream, will be up on Monday, and the podcast will be up on Sunday. So if you are listening to this show in the future, you are listening to it on the podcast, but I am also at mikebooty.com/themidnightcitizen. Here on the live stream at youtube.com/mikebooty. You can find me on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, any of those great places where you get podcasts. And, yeah, stick around. I was thinking during that music break about, talking about the Big Lebowski. And it is funny, as an adult, nothing has really changed from when I was a kid and I watched movies. And I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I grew up in the golden age of kids' adventure films in the 80s and 90s. There was, I don't know if you would really call it terrific, but there was a prevalence of movies starring kids getting into all sorts of just dangerous adventures. And indeed, I learned a lot of really dangerous things from the movies. Things that I did repeat in real life. And every time, Congress has one of these hearings where they bring video game or Hollywood executives or something. I don't know if they've had one of these in a while, but they bring them to these hearings. They put them down in front of these really tall, skinny Bob Barker microphones, and they give them like all this water to drink when they're like thinking. And they say like, do you realize that the product that you put out, the filth that you put out, is damaging the youth of America? And I'm kind of on the side of the senators and the congressmen. They really do put out some stuff that negatively. I mean, I could have died many, many times when I was a kid because I was trying to reproduce some of the actions, and in some cases, some of the violence that the kids in the films were doing. Yes, no, I did that, definitely. So it's like there was a movie called The Goonies about these kids who like root around in the sewers and things like that. And it had me honestly thinking when I was, 4 or 5 years old when that movie came out and I saw it. They used to show it all the time in school, typically toward the end of the year when the teachers were tired of thinking and teaching. And I would think like, hey, if I go into the caves behind my house, which are really mines, because I'm in Alabama and there's mines everywhere. I'm going to find a sunken pirate ship and I'm going to loot it for gold and rich stuff, It's like the Goonies taught you to explore places in your own backyard. And I went back there to try and find sunken pirate ships. I didn't find any rich stuff, but I definitely found poison ivy. And of course the Ninja Turtles were really big. The Ninja Turtles. They live in the sewers. So like every time I walked by a storm drain, I would like get down on my hands and knees and like crawl and stick my head in there, trying to like smell the sweet stench of pizza because the Ninja Turtles loved pizza, and I knew they were down there in the sewers eating pizza and learning their karate moves. I didn't smell pizza. No, there was not pizza coming from that sewer. No. Luckily around that same time, the It television film came out. And that movie probably did more to scare kids off of the idea that the sewers were like a friendly place where you could go and hang out with Donatello and Raphael than any other thing ever. And there was also there was this movie that came out called The Wizard. Now, this is a bad film, but it is very well beloved by people my age who grew up with Nintendo. And this is a very much kind of like a Rain Man for kids, where there's a young autistic kid who's like a video game savant, and he runs away with his older brother, played by Fred Savage from the Wonder Years, and Jenny Lewis is a really good, indie singer-songwriter these days. And they run to Universal Studios in California, in Hollywood, and to compete in the video game World Championship or something like that. And this film has them riding their skateboards on the interstate. And this definitely, even though this is not a good film, it was available to me and I got it. And I had a skateboard and I was like, man, I want to go to Universal Studios Hollywood. All I have to do then is like take my skateboard and just go a few feet down the interstate and I'll be there. And this definitely led to some very long conversations between me and my parents. So like, when I was a kid, what I'm trying to say is that movies taught us to do some very dangerous things. But now, and I don't know if it's that same way for people my age or if everybody's like this, because movies, obviously, one of the reasons why they're probably the most powerful artistic medium that will ever exist is because they allow you to live so vicariously through the people on the screen that you just lose yourself in them. And you sometimes identify your own life with them. And when I watch films like The Big Lebowski, for instance, I begin to kind of picture myself as like, I could live this lifestyle. Like, I don't need to have all the stuff that I have, The Big Lebowski in the film, the dude, he lives on just what he needs to be happy. And I live on what I need to what I think I need to be happy. And I could get rid of a lot of stuff and just be happy and go and bowl and drink White Russians. I don't know. And I think that would be a fantastic lifestyle. And then you think, wait a second, this is just the same thing as when I was a kid and I was watching The Wizard and I was riding my skateboard on the interstate. Movies teach us dangerous things. We have to be very, very careful sometimes. I mean, before you know it, you're in the grocery store and you're writing a check for milk. Need to be careful about that. So anyway, well, the time has come. I want to do a little bit of a toast here to, I started this last year. I would do toast on the show to actors and people that I admire who had just passed away. And this week, somebody I definitely admired, an actor, passed away. Named Ned Beatty. He passed away at 82, and I didn't read the obituary. I didn't read any of the articles talking about him. I don't know what he died from. I know he was just old. He was up there, and he was always kind of a portly individual, But Ned Beatty was really just a very important actor. One of just in my mind, probably one of the 4 or 5 best character actors that ever existed. I don't know if you would call him a character actor because he was definitely a name. You know, character actors generally, people just kind of identify them as the guy who was in that thing. But Ned Beatty was definitely a star of certain sorts in the 1970s. He was in a lot of really important films that came out, and he was in a lot of unimportant films that came out. And that was kind of the essence of being an actor in the 70s, is that you would do a lot of prestigious, important films, but most of the time you would just star in like drive-in films and all that. So, you know. Ned Beatty, of course, is responsible for perhaps the most horrifying, probably one of the most horrifying scenes in film ever. And I'm sure you know exactly which scene I'm talking about.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it!
Yes, the scene in Network, of course. How can we forget Network? Oh, you thought I was talking about the other scene in Deliverance. Well, that's scary, too. You know, that's another reason why Ned Beatty is incredibly important, because it takes a very brave actor to do what he did in Deliverance and squeal like a pig, you know, but I won't go into that, though. But yeah, the scene, and I am absolutely serious, the scene in Network, written by Paddy Chayefsky and performed by Ned Beatty, is perhaps, when I was in high school and I first saw this film, one of the scariest scenes I had ever seen in a movie. Just because it was so realistic and such a just gut punch to believe that this is the way the world works. Now, if you're not familiar with the world with the film Network, and I tell you what, we'll pour a toast here in just a minute, okay? After I give you a little backstory on the movie Network, because you may not have seen it, and then we're going to watch this scene while we're enjoying our toast, and I'll come back and talk about it a little bit. But Network is a film that came out in 1976. It was written by the amazing playwright and screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky, who won an Academy Award for it, and directed by Sidney Lumet. It's just a powerhouse of great performances and just an amazing satire of television. And indeed, I watched it when I was a senior in high school for the first time, and had decided that I was going to go to the University of Alabama for communications, to study journalism. And I didn't get the message from the movie that that's really not a good pursuit. But the idea, though, in the movie is that a man is a network news anchor. He was fairly successful early in life, but after his wife divorced him, he started to drink very heavily, and then he becomes suicidal in the film, and just one night goes on the television network and just announces that he's going to kill himself. And suddenly, ironically, he starts getting ratings again. And people tune in, and he essentially uses the news not to tell you what's happening in the world, but to tell you what's really happening in the world, you know, to talk about how corporations own everything, and how there's very little, the loss of the individual, and how there's absolutely no, the individual really has no command over their life anymore, because they've allowed television to do the thinking for them. And it's an amazingly funny and scary satire of entertainment. And so I'm going to play this scene for you now. If you're watching on the live stream, I'll put it up. And yeah, we're going to do a little toast to Ned Beatty now, and who died this week at 82. I don't know what you had, but I have a little bit of Maker's Mark with me. You don't just have to be, by the way, watching live to do this. You can do this anywhere you are, in the past, in the future. Here we go. This is a scene where Howard Beale, the network news anchor, who will speak very, very little in this scene, is confronted by Ned Beatty, the chairman of the board of directors of the company that owns the company that owns the network.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West. There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, rins, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet. That is the natural order of things today. That is the atomic and subatomic and galactic structure of things today. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone. Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale? You get up on your little 21-inch screen and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon. Those are the nations of the world today. What do you think the Russians talk about in their councils of state? Karl Marx? They get out their linear programming charts, statistical decision theories, Minimax solutions, and compute the price-cost probabilities of their transactions and investments, just like we do. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business, Mr. Beale. It has been since man crawled out of the slime. And our children will live, Mr. Beale, to see that perfect world in which there's no war or famine, oppression or brutality. One vast and ecumenical holding company for whom all men will work to serve a common profit, in which all men will hold a share of stock, all necessities provided, all anxieties tranquilized, all boredom amused. And I have chosen you, Mr. Beale, to preach this evangel.
Why me?
Because you're on television, dummy. 60 million people watch you every night of the week, Monday through Friday.
I have seen the face of God.
You just might be right, Mr. Beale.
And that is one of only 2 scenes that Ned Beatty is in that movie, and he was nominated for an Academy Award. And normally you have to be in a lot more scenes than that in a movie to be nominated for an Oscar. But not Ned Beatty. He just needed 1. Only 1. And we drink to him. Wonderful actor. Passed away. Left us this week at 82. But I will honestly never forget the scene in Deliverance. At the end when, he's having dinner with that southern family in the small town right after they've been rescued. And John Voight just breaks down and starts crying just because of the harrowing adventure they had just been on, where Ned Beatty was sexually molested by 2 hillbillies before Burt Reynolds kills them. Or one of them, and then another one of them ends up killing their other buddy, played by Ronnie Cox, and John Voight has to go and kill the surviving hillbilly before he kills them. And John Voight just starts breaking down at the dinner table crying. Happy to be alive, but at the same time sad because one of his friends is dead. And through the whole thing, Ned Beatty, who should be crying because he's the one who was molested, tries to just distract everybody at the table from John Voight and his tears by just talking to them about how good the food is. Because, you're a southern man and you can't be seen to have emotions. And it's just great actor, honestly. I was looking at the live stream, and Steve says, by the way, that I am so far injury-free. Yeah, he made the comment this week on Facebook that I've actually injured myself on both of the shows so far this season. On the first show, I burnt my lip on a slice of pizza, and I think the it's actually almost healed, almost completely healed. You can kind of see it there. And then last week, of course, on the pre-show, I hit myself in the lip. In the teeth with the microphone. I was trying to adjust it and cracked my tooth. And this week, you can see I've got actually a foam head on the microphone. Not to cancel out all my pops and hisses, but to protect my teeth from the hard surface of the microphone. Oh. All right. What is going on tonight? I think what we're going to do now, is take a trip down to where, the Video Street Video Store. Yeah. We've got some new stock there this week. So enjoy this.
On the outskirts of Chicago, Illinois, Bungie Software is preparing to blur the line separating the virtual world from our own. Their next game, Halo, is still very early in the development process, but it is already very clear that it will make a massive impact on PC gaming and perhaps even change the way we look at games. Halo is a third-person sci-fi action game that depicts a great war between the human race and the Covenant, a consortium of different alien races who are highly motivated to destroy a fledgling human interstellar civilization. The action will take place on a huge alien-built ring construct that orbits a gas giant in the far reaches of space. A perfect battleground for a celestial war.
So the main character, the character that the player plays is a human military officer. What we're seeing here on the screen, the player is inside sort of a hologram room, which is showing. We've got a hologram of the ring itself you can see the terrain on the surface of it. It's orbiting a gas giant, and you can actually see a image of the halo itself is that small blue ring.
When it comes to gameplay, Halo will have a robust multiplayer play mode, much like that of Star Siege Tribes. But Bungie is devoted to creating a single-player game with a deep, non-linear storyline as well.
One of the things about prime characteristics about Halo is that it takes place in this huge, completely seamless world. It's an indoor-outdoor environment in which there are sort of no breaks between moving between the two environments.
Making the human and alien weapons and vehicles as different as possible is the key to ensuring that players will be able to specialize in playing the human or alien sides in multiplayer games.
One of the things we want to be very distinctly different in the game is the experience of playing humans and aliens.
So this is the anti-armor. This will be used to like take out tanks, other heavy equipment. It's got some cool looking animations here. You'll see when I fire it, the barrel revolves. It's basically got two barrels, so it fires two really quick, then he's got to reload.
Halo's physics model uses highly advanced mathematical computations to create a moving world that parallels our own. This concept was made clear to us in the demonstrations provided by physics programmer extraordinaire Charles Go.
If you watch the guy here, as I brake, I speed up and then I brake, he goes flying forward, and same way he goes backwards. And it's harder to see actually with this, but if I turn, you can see him leaning out there.
Progressively designed in every way, Bungie's new 3D engine pushes contemporary 3D hardware standards well beyond the current norm. With the entire game world rendered in 32-bit color, it is one of the first games to truly harness the power hidden deep within the current generation of graphics accelerators and depict landscapes that come alarmingly close to our own. The concept of exploring this vast and resplendent world is intriguing in itself. But when all of the pieces are in place, there will be much more to do than just sit on the bench and enjoy the rolling waves. It is clear to us that if Bungie's dream is fully realized, PC gaming will have yet another path to follow. A path that will surely lead us all to the next level of gaming. Deep in the heart of Dallas, Texas, a storm is about to erupt, one that has been brewing for 3 tumultuous years. At the eye of this storm rests a game developer that has recently kept quiet about its next big project. Until now.
Hi, welcome to Ion Storm.
Ion Storm is putting the final touches on its most anticipated title, Daikatana. A massive time-traveling journey that whisks players through 25th century Japan, ancient Greece, medieval Norway, and San Francisco circa 2030. Impresario John Romero, lead designer of Daikatana, gives us a telling glimpse of the game's premise.
John Romero, game designer of Daikatana.
Never heard of it.
The game, you don't have sidekicks. You're just trying to rescue Mikiko. And as you go through the game, you meet other people like your sidekicks, and they join you, and you continue on with them. And when if the sidekicks die, the game's over. So it's very important that you keep your sidekicks alive.
But surely a sidekick should be able to defend himself. Daikatana's advanced AI will take care of that, and then some.
The Sidekick AI, it uses the fundamental AI that's used for the movement of all the monsters, the node-based system. But they all have they both have their own special code to do ambient movements and make decisions on what they should do based off of what you're doing. And also you get to give them commands on what they should do in the game. Like, come over here, attack, don't attack, stay where you're at.
Unlike many first-person shooters, Daikatana will be underlined by a deep story, fueled by the player's interactions with his sidekicks.
Start off in 2455 AD in future Japan. You're trying to rescue Mikiko from from Kaji Mishima's fortress.
Ion Storm's voluptuous level designer and professional gamer, Stevie Case, describes the game's extraordinary appeal.
Start out in futuristic Japan, and it's all industrial and dark, and then you move on to ancient Greece, and that's looking really cool and different, and then you're going to some medieval stuff, and then you end up in futuristic San Francisco. So there's a lot of opportunity in there to do lots of different kind of mapping. It's really exciting. I think that the Greek episode is really catching up as my second favorite at this point. I didn't like it at first, but it's come so far, and it's very organic now, and the buildings really feel huge like they should. When you come up on something, it's difficult to give you a real sense of scale in a game. I mean, to make the player feel dwarfed by a structure. And I think we're starting to achieve that with that episode, and I love that feeling.
When it comes to play modes and depth, Daikatana will be nothing short of a meaty game.
Then there's Deathmatch Co-op, which will let you have a bunch of people going through the game, and the whole goal is just to get to the exit of the map, and whoever reaches the exit first gets a point. Then there's going to be CTF, and then there's going to be Death Tag, which is a Doom 2 style deathmatch mod, and we'll do it in Daikatana a little bit differently, but it's a really fun way to play.
It has been a long time coming, but it appears that Daikatana will finally be unleashed upon us all at the end of the year. The long wait just may be worth it.
So, A Tale of Two Cities, A Tale of Two Games. I themed the Video Street video store tonight. I don't normally do that. But I found these really two highly entertaining news reports from the late 1990s, filmed at more or less the exact same time. The first one was for Halo, that was developed by Bungie Software out of Chicago, Illinois. And, of course, went on to be just an immensely successful game in a way that my high school students talk about it today as if, like, I had never heard of it. They're like, have you ever played Halo? Or have you ever heard of Halo? And I'm like, kid, I invented Halo. Not really, but I mean, I was there the month that Halo came out. I was there. And I went over to my friend Fairhan's birthday, and we were sitting in there in his apartment playing Halo multiplayer. Everybody was taking turns shooting me and coal-cocking me with their guns. And we were just going around all night doing a coal cock round, just seeing how many people we could coal cock in one round. Just because I think we were high school boys and we enjoyed saying coal cock. Yeah. And then, of course, the worst of times with Daikatana and John Romero, who was, of course, one of the massively successful creators of Doom, who essentially had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. And he created this game, Daikatana, which went on to be one of the biggest video game failures, one of the most highly anticipated games of 1999, 2000. And it just tanked horribly. And, there are obviously really good reasons why that happened. I think it was just like a sophomore syndrome. A lot of people do something, they have amazing success. They don't quite do so well on their second or third outing because the anticipation and the expectation is too great. And I definitely sympathize with John Romero there. But of course, he comes across in that last report you heard as an incredibly arrogant guy where he can't even be bothered to like say his own name without like just sounding a little bit arrogant. He's like, I'm John Romero. I'm lead game designer at Daikatana. What are you doing here? Like, he just doesn't really seem like, he's like, you know who I am. Why do I have to say my name? And then of course, one of his like sycophants, one of his follower game designers next to him is like says sarcastically, I never heard of you. And they got like Stevie Case there, who you just heard an interview with. And I love how they interview her in that news report with like, Daikatana's voluptuous level designer, Stevie Case, which I think is like the first time voluptuous and level designer have ever gone hand in hand in a news report about a video game before. But what you did not see if you're listening to the audio-only version of this episode is the camera panning down to Stevie Case's chest as she was talking, because they know exactly they're a video game review show and they know exactly who their audience is. It's not voluptuous level designers, so yeah. Yeah, I just love that stuff, man. So, what else we got tonight? I think I wanted to talk about one more thing. So, one of the things that I was actually thinking of showing you on the Video Street Video Store tonight was another news report from the 1980s, and I decided to abandon it because it went on for a little bit too long. But it was about this Max Headroom video hack in 1987. And you may remember this. I certainly am not old enough to remember this, but I've heard about it many times. And I believe it was WGN in Chicago was actually hacked in 1987 during the middle of a football game with this guy in a Max Headroom mask. Max Headroom, kind of the video computer generated image of this, like, I don't know, demon inside of a television. And it was just this hack that kind of interrupted the football game and led to this major FCC investigation and really began this national conversation about hackers and what they could do to our normal experience. And I found that interesting because, well, one, of course, there's been a couple of very famous hacks lately going on in America. Of course, everybody says that the 2016 election was tampered with by Russian hackers. And, Donald Trump and his Trumpettes and his other supporters, his Karens and Kens. See, I did a callback there. They're all talking about how last year's election was hacked and all that. I don't know. But this Colonial Pipeline hack definitely affected everyday Americans like you and me. Or everyday people, You may be listening to me somewhere else, but yeah, this Colonial Pipeline hack caused gas prices to shoot up. They're still kind of up. And it affected me because I have to fill up my tank at least once or twice a week, especially if I'm delivering food for Grubhub. And so it's really interesting that, these hacks, they've gone from being like these fun. I feel like, everything was much more fun in the 80s and 90s. And maybe I'm just looking back on the past, like with rose-tinted glasses. But how conspiracy theories are really interrupting the public discourse right now, and they're really leading to some very negative things. These conspiracy theories, like with QAnon and all that. And conspiracy theories used to be fun. They used to just be about aliens and Area 51 and the Kennedy assassination. And they used to be fun to entertain with your friends over like a couple of beers or something like that. And now they're just dark, and they lead to people just locking themselves up in dark rooms for hours and hours with computers, going on and sharing these memes. And then hackers, like hacking used to be fun. There was that image of like that 1995 film Hackers. See, I've been talking for a while, and I've had a little whiskey, so I'm starting to slur my words. But, in that movie Hackers in 1995, they hack into a television system and try to play their favorite episodes of The Outer Limits. It's nothing like this now with this Colonial Pipeline business, where it like really infuriates people and makes them angry and leads to them, paying like 10 cents more at the pump than they did the day before. Or just coming on with like a Max Headroom mask. But so anyway, and I was thinking also about when I was a kid, and this could have been very well in 1987, watching television with my family, and we're watching the movie Harry and the Hendersons. And I don't know if when that movie came out, but we're watching it on television. Not a videotape. We were definitely watching it on television. It came on. It was like the movie of the week or something. And Harry and the Hendersons is this movie about like a Bigfoot that moves in with like this typical suburban family. And we're watching it, and all of a sudden I remember the signal being interrupted. And there was like this demon-looking guy against this static television background. And he's like laughing and laughing and laughing. And then it goes back to Harry and the Hendersons. And, of course, it scared me. And many years later, I was thinking about the idea that like maybe this was a dream. Maybe I dreamt it up. And this is just, because when you're a kid, you have a feeling of, when you're thinking back to your earliest memories of being a child, sometimes you're wondering if those memories, you can really trust them. Were they actually just dreams, So I was thinking it was a dream, and then years later, I'm about 21, 22 years old, and I'm talking to my best friend's girlfriend. And I'm telling her this story because we're talking about Harry and the Hendersons, and she's like, "Oh my God, yeah, I remember that." I'm like, are you serious? So apparently she has the same memory. But again, I don't know if this is just the power of suggestion or whatever. But the deal is simply that this incident did happen, but it happened in Chicago. It didn't happen in Birmingham, Alabama. But then again, maybe it could have, and it just wasn't widely reported because it was in Birmingham, Alabama. Which again, I live in a small place. They don't write music about this place. They don't make movies about it. It's not like Nashville, Tennessee. And that's all I have time for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Midnight Citizen Show. I am at MikeBooty.com/The Midnight Citizen. I'm also at the Overnightscape Underground on SUG, ONSUG.com, which is me and a bunch of other amazing podcasters doing our thing. Founded by Frank Edward Nora in 2009. And I've actually got a Zoom call with all those guys tomorrow, so I'm excited. I get on and talk to all my other podcasting friends, and that'll be fun. So yes, until next time, guys, have a wonderful week, wonderful summer week. Keep your eyes open and keep meddling with the primal forces of nature. Keep your eyes open. Thank you.